Welcome back to the FPL reaction stream. We are approaching the end of this season, so we are talking about Game Week 35 so far, and then previewing Game Week 36, which of course is still a little while away, and we'll see how the rest of Game Week 35 goes, but on the whole it hasn't been great, kind of the typical Saturday for me. 14 points, small red arrow, but I've got a lot of players left to play, so I'm still fairly confident I can achieve a green, and a lot depends on the captaincy if Bryan Mbeumo does the business. I was tempted by Marmoush, but he ended up blanking yesterday in a 1-0 win over Wolves, and Kevin De Bruyne was the star of the show. And apart from that, it has been quite underwhelming FPL-wise. Ollie Watkins and Rodgers both blanking in a 1-0 win over Fulham. And you look at the other ones, Everton defenders and Pickford in goal. 2 goals conceded after being 2-0 up. And then the Arsenal players today obviously letting a lot of people down. And then you look at Bournemouth, maybe some people with Evanilson on the bench and players of like Semenyo, for example, who loves to return when you least expect them to. And he got a 4-pointer off the bench, getting the assist for the first goal. But I'm sure the Sunday should be much more eventful, even the Monday game as well. But I'll discuss my thoughts right now, the initial plans for Game Week 36. I'm not even ruling out a goalkeeper move. It might seem very weird to do at this stage of the season, but Raya facing Liverpool away and Verbruggen against Wolves away, it actually might be worth a goalkeeper transfer in my situation, but I'll talk about that in my team selection and also throughout the duration of this video. So let's see what people are saying. Manish says, Milenkovic will come on for Haaland. Speaking of which, that was quite noteworthy. I did discuss the lineups yesterday as I was closing the deadline stream. Erling Haaland was on the bench, but he was an unused substitute in that victory against Wolves. But he could come into the mix now against Southampton away next week, and maybe Marmoush isn't as nailed on as we thought he'd be, with Haaland seemingly missing most of the rest of the season. Of course, he has missed a lot of game time already since that FA Cup win over Bournemouth, but yeah, he's back earlier than expected, so that is a massive boost there for City. Easy says 12 points with a -4 with 6 players to go. Yeah, not great, but still possible to gain something depending on the quality of your remaining players. But yeah, so far it's not looking great for many people, but not all. Evanilson, the only player that returned, and Howson in my bench when I put Mykolenko in the starting lineup. That's pretty good, though, to put Evanilson in your starting 11. I'm not even sure if you can say the goal's debatable or not, but either way, don't really care. I think Bournemouth were clinical with 2 shots on target. They got the victory, and Evanilson does get those bonus points when he does get those goals, and he has been very impressive recently. So that was obviously a massive boost for the Cherries when that red card was rescinded several days ago, and it was the right decision because that was never a red card in the first place. Mojito says I captain KDB. Just a heads up, please keep one Arsenal defender only, Raya. Oh yeah, I mean, I said this even before today's game. My plan is to bench every single Arsenal player, and of course I sold Saka to Mbeumo in the deadline stream yesterday. And in UCL Fantasy, I'm actually looking at a similar strategy of just getting rid of all my Arsenal players, going all in on PSG, and either jinxing or getting points. So that is my current thinking at the moment. I certainly wouldn't recommend any Arsenal player, even Saka, in Game Week 36. Yusuf says, best week of the season for me so far. Well, that's surprising to hear. 48 points, no Arsenal on the bench. Captain KDB, 22 points. Yeah, that would have already been enough on its own. Yeah, the Aston Villa clean sheet, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it. I thought Fulham would score 1 goal, and I went for a 3-1 Aston Villa win, but it was tighter than that. And Martinez got 2 bonus points as well, so enjoy those. I think Konsa is also on course to get 1 bonus. Mitoma, Isak, Palmer, Eze, Mateta, Munoz to go. Looks fairly promising. It's a great start to the week for you. A green arrow should be secured, but yeah, maybe the rest of your players might not stack up to what you think, but who knows at this point. Easy says have Vissa, Mbeumo, Searles, Salah, Elanga, and Virgil left. That's pretty solid overall. Lucas Dunn says I had a miserable week so far. Only 23 points from 5 players. I still have Bowen captain tomorrow and Glasner assistant manager, but not looking good this week. Yeah, it's disappointing, but 23 points could be a green arrow in certain rank points. Maybe not where you are at the moment, but yeah, Bowen captain could be a nice differential, and the assistant manager, I think, will probably secure you a green arrow. I think Glasner could be fairly decent. Yeah, all good, Arthur. What about you? All I care about is Wednesday night, but yeah, being realistic about it, it doesn't look good for the Gunners. Alex ND says, hey Dylan, sorry about the Arsenal performance. Don't be. It's just the same old shit all season, you know, being 1-0 up and then letting it slip. But I thought, you know what, it's going to be another 1-1 draw. But yeah, for them to lose that game, that's pretty damning after Arsenal put virtually their strongest team available right now. Don't you think FPL Twitter has a bit exaggerated how good teams' defense is, that they can't keep clean sheets this season? Yeah, I've seen some people say that on X and also on YouTube, and it's a fair point. I mean, David Raya is the highest owned goalkeeper in the game, but he has been fairly poor for a while now. And Arsenal haven't kept back-to-back clean sheets in the Premier League since August. That's when it looked like we had to go triple up in the Arsenal team with Saka and then Raya and Gabriel. But things changed very quickly, and ultimately has been a dismal season from start to finish for Arsenal. They had a fairly decent start, but I'd say around the few game weeks in, you started getting a sensation that it wasn't going to be the season that they wanted with the injury suspensions. But even with those in mind, I just think Arsenal have been poor in terms of creativity. They don't kill games off. And I'm not even sure how many games it's been now in the Premier League, but they go 1-0 up, don't kill the game off, and then end up dropping points. And you can't do that and expect to compete for things. So, yeah, last season I was very I'd say proud of Arsenal. They played some great football, ended the season very strongly, and fell short against the great Man City team. But yeah, this campaign has been a disaster. The only saving grace is if they go on and do something special in the Champions League, but yeah, it looks very unlikely, to be honest. Philippe says 4 points from Saka and Pickford, unlucky considering the potential, but after 19 from KDB and Gvardiol, can't complain with 23 and a -4 from 4 players. Yeah, great start for you yesterday. I think Pickford and Saka, you would have expected them to return. Of course, after we saw Saka starting and Arsenal going strong, you expected much better from those players. But yeah, Pickford was surprising. When Everton went 2-0 up, I thought, oh, okay, I'm a bit gutted not going for those Everton defenders or Pickford. But in the end, I'm quite happy with that result. Ian C says Arsenal should still be good for Champions League. How do you think they'll fare next week versus Liverpool? Even if Arsenal had won today and they go on to win in Paris, I still think Liverpool win that game. Yeah, the Reds should rotate a little bit, but it will still be a strong side. And with Arsenal's recent form, only 1 win in the last 5 Premier League games. And if you look at the last 14 matches across all competitions, only 6 wins. Just not good enough. 2 losses in that time frame now, back to back. So yeah, it's been really poor for Arsenal. So I think Liverpool get the win. If I'm going to give a prediction right now, it's probably like 3-1 Liverpool, 2-0. It could even be worse than that, actually. But my kind of prediction right now is for Arsenal to go on one of their typical winless streaks, and they're currently on 2 in a row. I think PSG would make it 3, and Liverpool 4, and maybe Newcastle make it 5. It's not looking too good for Arsenal, but football is a funny game. Who knows? On Wednesday, getting a result there and going through, it changes everything. But for Gameweek 36 specifically, I think Liverpool do get the win. I'm not going to lie. Yusuf says, Cunha looks like a must-own, so dangerous and many avenues to scoring points. Yeah, I did actually talk about my reticence about going for Cunha in Gameweek 35 because he has never scored against Man City. He hit the woodwork, of course, yesterday. A bit unlucky not to score, but yeah, Cunha does look very promising for the last 3 game weeks. And with Chris Wood lacking the form, I know you've got Evanilson, Vissa and other forwards that are doing pretty well, but Cunha is one of the standouts there. 18 points in Green Arrow, what a game week. Yeah, still a way to go. I wouldn't celebrate anything just yet, but yeah, if you've got a decent number of players left of good quality, then you should be fine. Top 8 predictions. Well, obviously Liverpool goes without saying. In second, I think Man City. Yeah, Man City, I guess Newcastle, Arsenal. Tough to say. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like looking at the Premier League table nowadays, but yeah, in 5th place, difficult one. I think Chelsea have some tough fixtures, so I think they'll finish 6th. I think Aston Villa will finish 5th. So yeah, then Chelsea 6th. The thing is, Forest have very good fixtures, to be fair. It's a difficult one, to be fair. That's the only good thing about what remains of this season, that kind of battle for the top 5. So you're looking at one of Chelsea, Forest or Villa missing out. Or 2 of them, actually. For that final Champions League spot, I'd probably go for... Yeah, I'm going to say Aston Villa right now. But that is going to change week on week. And if Villa drop points today, I'd be much less confident about that. But yeah, in 8th place, I think Bournemouth... They probably will get there. So pretty much as it is right now, but a few modifications. I think Arsenal drop to 3rd or 4th. because they face Liverpool away and Newcastle at home. I don't think they'll win any of those games. Yeah, that'd be my prediction at the moment. So thank you to those that have tuned in. Like the video, subscribe. We're actually very close to a new goal, 33,000, which is the last big objective, so to speak, of this season. So we're 26 away, and by Tuesday's deadline stream in UCL Fantasy, we will achieve that goal. But if we do make a push today, that would be much appreciated. Yeah, nicely done, London W4. I also saw another person talk about buying Vardy this week, and I was just a bit skeptical because Leicester have been so poor this season, and Vardy has had a dismal last couple of weeks, missing a penalty against Wolves recently. But yeah, he got the goal on maximum bonus points, a nice return. And in a week with few standout captaincy options, it's nice to have a differential like that pay off. Well, Jurrien Timber came off against PSG with an injury, and I think he was just rested today, but maybe Mikel Arteta said something in the last hour after the game, talking about an update about Timber. I would expect him to start against PSG, but equally, I wouldn't be that surprised or shocked if Timber was a major doubt, considering Arsenal's season. But my prediction right now, hopefully not jinxing anything, is that Timber will be there against PSG. But I was actually asked about him a lot yesterday, and my advice was to not start him because I didn't think he would start himself. Hoping Vissa captain goes ballistic against United tomorrow. Yeah, that'd be great if Vissa and Mbeumo can damage them properly. Of course, Mbeumo is my preference, but we'll see how that goes. At least Vardy scored in my FPL Challenge team. Oh yeah, I've only got one player so far in Pickford. He blanked. The rest are from Newcastle, Brighton, so we'll see how that goes. Dragons8 says, hi Dylan, I still have the bench boost with no double ahead. When would you play it? There is still a very small chance, as covered in yesterday's deadline stream, that the Premier League will listen to Tottenham Hotspur and put that Spurs-Aston Villa game into Game Week 36. I don't think it will happen, but it is a possibility. The talks are still ongoing. But probably Game Week 36, because I talked about this before. In Game Week 37, you've got the two FA Cup finalists who will prioritise that FA Cup final. So Crystal Palace and Man City. And you've also got Arsenal and Newcastle playing against each other. So if you've got double or triple ups in both, I mean, I definitely encourage you to trim that down, especially for Arsenal. But if you have that sort of structure, I would probably encourage you to bench boost in 36 instead. Welcome, Beardy. Good to see you. No worries, John. I'll be honest, I'm actually I don't really care. I've said this before. I want to win every single game, but does it really matter if you finish second, third, fourth, fifth? Not really, but it does look really bad for Arsenal playing a really strong team, losing 2-1, looking toothless once more, the same issues of all season, and now the likes of Man City, who have also had a horrid campaign, will overtake you. So that's really about it. And then you've got rival fans and stuff like that, and the banter. I don't really care about that, but like I said, it can all change in a flash if Arsenal go through to the Champions League final and win it. But the odds and the chances are very, very slim. Morsan says, I was so close to winning FPL Challenge again last game week. I now have a first place, 5th place, and 111th place finish. Well, if you have finished first before, then you've got it done and secured. But of course, once you have that taste of success, you want to keep on doing it. Yusuf says Arteta is a very stubborn manager. Could have fielded a second side, but he wants to win every game all the time, and it's mentally tiring out the players. Yeah, I think if Arsenal had won the game, I think it is ultimately going to be outcome bias. But I think having that strong team out and then failing to win the game, that just puts even more pressure. It also takes away confidence. And if Arsenal then go on to lose on Wednesday or get knocked out, yeah, it's just going to invite more pressure on Arteta there. Now, I'll be honest, Arteta's done a lot of good with Arsenal in the last couple of years, and I do feel he's the main reason why Arsenal have been competing. Not this season, I would say last season and the year before, but he's also the reason why Arsenal haven't gotten over the line. I think that is pretty much my assessment of Arteta at the moment. John says, shocked at 87 minutes from Saka. Yeah, my original prediction actually was for Saka to start, and a lot of people said, really? Like, what is that even based on? And then the more I thought about it, and, you know, looking at the PSG game in a couple of days' time and expecting them to rotate, which they did today, I thought Saka would probably come off the bench for 30 minutes. That was my final assessment of it, but it turned out I was wrong at the end, and I should have stuck with my original prediction. But for him to get 87 minutes, I'm surprised by that anyway. I thought he'd get 60, 70 max at the beginning of the week, but there you go. Adil says, evening. The same goes to you. JC says, gutted I did not go with KDB captain over Marmoush. Thoughts on staying with KDB over Saka? Yeah, there is a slight concern of rotation, but I'll be honest, I think KDB with 20-30 minutes against Southampton, if that was to be the case, he's still far more appealing than Saka against Liverpool away. So, yeah, I think KDB over Saka is the way to go. And it's not like you've got Cole Palmer in form to have an alternative there. I mean, could Cole Palmer score against Liverpool and suddenly he looks really enticing again? That could happen. And my prediction from a few weeks ago is for Palmer to kind of haul when we least expect him to, and when he sold in droves. But yeah, for your question specifically, I think KDB over Saka all day long. Alex says your top 3 forwards until the end of the season. I wouldn't say Evanilson should be there, but he's definitely a contender. He's in the top 5. The others to also look at are Chris Wood for the fixtures, but he's got the lack of form. I think Matheus Cunha has decent games coming up and also great form overall. Isak is still up there. I think he can score in all of the remaining games. I think Marmoush is less appealing now. He'd be a decent option, and I think he'll start against Southampton, but it isn't a guarantee. And with Erling Haaland on the bench yesterday, yeah, I'd be less keen on Marmoush. I'd probably say Vissa, Cunha. I'm going to say Chris Wood, and Evanilson is in 4th, but that's my current assessment of it. Christian United says, I had Saka as captain, but some fans said he wouldn't start. I subbed him for KDB and made him captain. Thanks, fans. Well, he did start, so they were wrong about that, but that logic obviously applied into your decision-making of selling him to KDB, and it worked out for you. Adil says, surprised Arteta went full strength, and to lose at home to Bournemouth with that 11 just before PSG is embarrassing. I agree. I can't even defend that. Now, once again, it is outcome biased. If Arsenal win that game, you got Odegaard getting the assist and having a good first half and stuff like that, then things look suddenly rosy or promising heading into that PSG game. But yeah, now it's just more pressure. Also a loss of confidence, I think. But it is basically exposing Arsenal this season in terms of the lack of creativity and not having those world-class attackers. I think Saka's the only one who is debatable in terms of that bracket. The rest are just like squad players. Trossard, Moreno's playing there as a makeshift. And Kai Havertz, you know, as bad as he can be in front of goal, he has been massively missed by Arsenal. And he shouldn't be relied upon the way he is. He should be a backup player at the most. But Arsenal have 4 wins in the Premier League since he got injured. So it goes to show, I think Arsenal need a massive summer. And the recent transfer windows, all it's done is put more pressure on the Gunners to spend big in the upcoming transfer windows. And yeah, it's all their fault. The Arsenal board, Arteta's partly responsible. And for certain games this season, with the tactics and the kind of focus on control, the lack of freedom, that is on Arteta's door for me. John says Chelsea being in the conversation is stunning. I wouldn't really say it's stunning in terms of Chelsea being in the conversation for a top 5 battle. Let's not forget they spent, what, over $1 billion in a space of 3 years? And last season they ended quite strongly. Maybe you're referring to something else, but I mean, we all expected them to win the Conference League at the beginning of the season. They'll likely go on to do that. I don't think that's anything to really shout home about, but of course, winning that and then qualifying for the Champions League is decent for Chelsea, considering where they were a few years ago, but they have spent a lot of money. So I think Forest finishing in a Champions League spot would be far more impressive. And I know they spent a lot of money as well, but not over $1 billion in 3 years. 9 points from 4 players and captain Marmoush, terrible man. Yeah, I didn't expect it. I thought Marmoush would get something there against Wolves. And yeah, for that to be a 1-0 win, you could say somewhat surprising, but I did see their recent record against Wolves and a lot of 1-0s and 2-1s at home. I went for 2-1 in my prediction, but in the end, yeah, only KDB really hauling for those that went there. So Korbza, another decent score, and of course KDB being a huge part of it. 43 points so far, KDB with 22. Constant Gavadio getting returns, and Marmoush and Rogers getting just 2 and 3, and Raya on 1. Yeah, good players left as well. I'd be very confident of a significant green arrow in your case. The KDB captain is very well played. He was in my top 3 captaincy list. I did put Marmoush in second, but I was asked towards the end of the deadline stream, if KDB starts, would you rank him higher than Marmoush? And my answer was yes. But that was definitely very close, and I think the massive swing between him and Marmoush is quite surprising to me at least. 1Z Celsius says, Howson always keeps trolling me when I bench him. Clean sheet against Palace, assist versus West Ham, and now goal versus Arsenal. He also scored against United and Tottenham earlier this season. He is quite difficult to predict with the goals, and that's actually 3 set-piece goals Bournemouth have scored against Arsenal this season. So it looks like the Cherries are now Arsenal's kryptonite. That's 2 wins as well in the Premier League. I mean, I'll be honest, it's embarrassing. I know Bournemouth have done well this season, but they had 2 wins in the last 10 matches. So yeah, it makes me feel sick, but there you go. That's football, that's FPL. It's a nightmare at times, but I can't wait until it's done. Yeah, Wei saying I think Chelsea can finish in the top 5, but I look at your upcoming fixtures and I think Forest have far more appealing games, but you can also argue that their wheels have kind of fallen off a little bit. Omar says, underwhelming start to my Guardiola AM with only a 1-0 win, 9 points, plus my Mush captain, hoping tomorrow is a better day. Yeah, we all are. I think Sunday will be quite promising for most people that are in this stream. I've had this kind of cycle all season. Poor on the Saturday, and then the Sunday looks a bit better, and I get a green arrow in the end, but we'll see how it pans out. It's still a decent start, though, to your AM. You don't have any double game weeks. I used it around 24 with back-to-back double game weeks for RNA slot, and I was a little bit underwhelmed, you could say, when you saw David Moyes and Unai Emery and all these managers doing so well, Oliver Glasner, but I think 9 points is still pretty standard and decent. You're not going to get much more than that, and even if Man City won 3-0, you're only gaining 2 more points from that sort of scoreline. Chelsea Blue says, hi Dylan, currently on 31 points with 7 to go. That is a good score. Yeah. No ideal. I literally said at the beginning of the stream, I think City will finish above Arsenal. Now, did I think that a few months ago? No. But this focus on the Champions League, and whilst I do understand it, there is no excuse, I think, in terms of these performances in the Premier League, because these happened also when Arsenal were in contention for the Premier League title. So, yeah. My Everton prediction was wrong, says Joyton. Yeah, I went for 2-0, but I was considering 2-1. I certainly didn't expect 2-2, though. We can refer back to my predictions very shortly. I don't think I got many right. In terms of scorelines, definitely not. Omar says, what was Arteta's justification for not resting his team? Well, to be fair, the PSG game is on Wednesday. So I don't think it's like a massive error. I know the result is obviously very poor, and now it puts more pressure. But yeah, it's just the same old crap all season from Arsenal, going 1-0 up and failing to capitalise on it. But, you know, I'm like a broken record, but I think it's definitely worth putting pressure on the club and also to keep highlighting the issues. You know, you have that sort of transfer window in the summer. You don't spend a single dime in the last 2 January transfer windows, especially the last one where reinforcements were desperately needed and nothing was done about it. Sam says, double C defence, bench Saliba, Bowen captain, Konsa benched. Yeah, kind of mixed bag there. Bowen captain, of course, still a bit of hope for you. I don't see a massive ceiling, but if he gets a goal and 2 or 3 bonus points, I think that's a very solid return. Well, Wacing, I think Arsenal can man-mark the PSG front three. I don't think they will do it successfully, and I think Kivior was a bit shaky today. Ultimately, Gabriel is a huge miss. You know, that's always... You know, when that injury happened, I lost complete faith in beating Real Madrid there. Surprisingly, Arsenal battered Madrid over both legs, but yeah, I'm more concerned about Arsenal scoring a goal against PSG. Yeah, I don't see Arsenal scoring 2 goals in France. Yeah, exactly that, Joey. Trossard, Martinelli, they should be squad players at the most, and not really improving on that attack. It kind of baffles me. Maybe they were a bit complacent because they scored so many goals last season in the Premier League, but even with a club record in the Premier League for most goals scored in a season, there were still a lot of games where Arsenal failed to score, and that cost them the title last year. So for them to do nothing, sign Sterling on loan, is absolute madness there. Dylan, are you thinking about which third City asset you will get? Well, KDB would be the standout, but let's not forget, against Southampton away, they could rotate, and for the FA Cup final, that will surely be Pep Guardiola's priority there. Adil says, just watched Arteta's post-match interview with Sky Sports, and he said Timber is in contention to play versus PSG, but it depends on what the doctors say. Yeah, not surprised about that. Pretty much what I was talking about earlier with, I think, Wei Seng, who asked about it. Yeah, look, easy. I don't think Arsenal will win. You'll see my prediction in the Champions League Fantasy deadline stream, but once more, I have to reiterate, I don't think Arsenal's defence is the biggest issue. whilst it hasn't been great, I think, and it certainly isn't the best in Europe, as maybe some people like myself maybe claim once upon a time. But yeah, it's just the Arsenal attack. I just don't really see it causing that many problems. Wacing says, if Spurs United end up in the Champions League and Forest don't, there is officially no justice in the world. Well, that's just the way it is, right? The Europa League for me is a second-rate European competition, but the main appeal of winning it is to qualify to the Champions League. So, yeah, it's embarrassing, you know. I think the Europa League this season is very, very poor. There's not much quality in there. But, yeah, if Spurs United end up winning it, they go into the Champions League. And if Forest, you know, don't capitalise on their great start to the season and finish in the top 5, then it is what it is, right? That's football. It takes more skill, I think, to win a league, especially the Premier League, compared to, let's say, the Champions League or these cup competitions. But yeah, you might say it's a bit of injustice. United and Spurs have been absolutely woeful, but they are pretty much cup teams at the moment. Yeah, probably not Beardy, but maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. Like, I want to win every game, but ultimately, for me, the only thing I care about in the Premier League is winning the title. And now, if Arsenal... I'm not saying I want this to happen, but to look at the positive side of it, if Arsenal don't finish in that top 5, let's not forget the 5th spot does get Champions League next season, it does put more pressure on the club to have a big summer. And ultimately, that's what's probably needed, because Arsenal have been very complacent in the recent transfer windows. If they went for it and got the players needed, yeah, it could be a very successful season and something different. But it's the same old shit with Arsenal, unfortunately. Saka to KDB against Southampton. Once again, it looks great on paper, but we don't know for sure if KDB starts against Southampton. So just be a bit careful about that. But I'd be very encouraged. I mean, I was talking about KDB all week, and my dream scenario was to buy him and Mbeumo simultaneously. Phillips says, I did my early transfers and went Salah to Elanga and Isak to Haaland. Wild aggressive moves, but that's how I've played all season. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And if Haaland starts, that could be a great set of moves there. Set myself up with a high value differential to push for the 100k. Yeah, good luck with that. I hope you achieve it. I'm also looking to break into that top 100k. I'm around 17 points off that mark now, and I'm hoping after Sunday I'll be much closer. Well, Weising, I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that, because Arteta is still not even on Wenger's level. I mean, Wenger is one of the best Premier League managers of all time. You might have remembered his last years where he was basically just finishing in the top 4 and winning FA Cups, but Wenger in the first few years at Arsenal was competing with Sir Alex Ferguson and Man United, and he was one of the best managers in Europe. So there's definitely no debate that Arteta is nowhere near Arsene Wenger's level. And in Arsenal's history, you've also got George Graham, you've also got Herbert Chapman. Those three would be the best Arsenal managers, I think, in many people's eyes. Arteta's done a great job recently, but I think this season he has failed tactically and also in certain games. And I've definitely called him out a lot more this season. I felt in the last campaign, there were a few games where I thought he was at fault, but not as many as in this season. Genius Gamer says, do you think Foden starts next game week, or should I move him to KDB? That is a double-edged sword. You could sell Foden to KDB, and it ends up being Foden starting, but at the moment, KDB is certainly a bit more nailed on than Foden. In fact, he's much more likely to start games than Foden, but that FA Cup final looming, you know, on the horizon, that's going to be a big problem, I think, for these City assets. Beatty says, I captain Marmoush. How stupid am I? Not really. I just think it's a decent decision and a bit of bad luck there. I was told by some people in the live chat that a lot of other deadline streamers basically switched their captaincy to Marmoush in the last minute. I'm glad I didn't do that, to be honest. Thorsten Hausen, non-FPL. Yeah, he's a good centre-back. I'm fairly sure he'll go to Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or something like that. I think Arsenal have been linked to him as well, but yeah, he's a good centre-back. He's got potential, but I'm always a bit sceptical and cautious when kind of like talking so much about a player and saying, oh, he's amazing, because this is his first season at a decent level. LA says, logged into your deadline stream for you to recommend starting Konsa over Saliba. Big thanks. I'm surprised I said that, to be fair, but enjoy the points, I guess. I mean, yeah, I wish I had Konsa. Morsan says, I played a bench boost with Kepa, Sarr, Livramento and Nico Williams. Hopefully one player can return. Yes, Sarr's the most likely, but you never know. You might be pleasantly surprised after tomorrow and Monday. Oh, right. Fair enough, John. Yeah, Chelsea are simply rubbish, but they'll probably win a trophy, and then their fans are going to gas it up because their standards are so low, but it is what it is, right? How the hell is Odegaard on 3 bonus points? he had a good first half, and the assist for Declan Rice was decent, but that second half, yeah, it was poor. And yeah, it's just, I'm not sure why he got 3 bonus points, but I also think with Bournemouth, they basically had 2 shots on target and won the game. So if we saw a bit more from them offensively, then the likes of Van Olsen, of course, Semenyo came off the bench, these players would have gotten the bonus points instead. Easy says, Vissa, Mbumo, Wood, Marmoush, and KDB as captain next game, make top 5 rank. Yeah, it's a bit too early to say. I think KDB would be the standout right now, but his minutes are a big concern. I think Marmoush and Haaland could rotate a little bit, so that would put me off. But yeah, KDB first, Mbumo second, Chris Wood third, Vissa fourth is a kind of rough ranking at the moment. Adil says, started both Ruben Dias and Gavardio and see who got the clean sheet, can't complain. Only thing is I bench Konsa. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that sort of thing here where people started high-scoring players, but they also had some decent scores on their bench. So yeah, I need to catch up. So let's whiz through the rest that is coming up. But before I do, let's go through some different screens. I'll probably not go to it again. Feel free to rewind or pause if needed. But let's look at the FDR for the last 3 games of the season. Thank the Lord, this Premier League season is finally over, almost. Ipswich Town, Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves and Fulham are in the top 5. If we look at the bottom teams here, Brighton, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Chelsea and Aston Villa. For the assistant manager, Fantasy Football Hub recommend Ange Postecoglou for the next 3 game weeks. Amrim, Guardiola, Moyes and Arteta are in the top 5. My recommendation is Pep, even though for Game Week 37 there might be a slight concern there with rotation. And definitely don't use the assistant manager in 37. If you still have it, use it now. And if you got that and another chip remaining, you're basically losing a chip or you're losing 1 game week from the assistant manager. With price changes, we could see Cunha, Collins, Aït-Nouri, Flecken and Ruben Dias go up in price tonight, whilst Rashford, Asensio, Gabriel, Savio, Luca Dean could go down. If you actually look at the top 10k captaincy, top 100k, Mbumo is top, but it's very close with 35% there. Salah is second with 19%. Marmoush is narrowly behind. Then you've got Isak and Bowen completing that top 5 list. And Jared Bowen, De Bruyne is a massive differential. Only 3.5% of managers in the top 100k have captained him for an 11-point score as the baseline. Let's also go to fpl.team, and this is a sneak preview of Game Week 36. And the best advice I can give is do not start any of these Arsenal players. I think this website is actually bugging out right now. I'll see if I can get it to work. But yeah, trust me, Raya will not be in my starting 11. The same goes for William Saliba as well. And going to FPL Challenge, I've only got 2 points. Horrendous, but only 1 player's played so far. And everyone else is from Newcastle and Brighton. I might change up a little bit and go for some other Sunday or Monday players. But yeah, Isak is my captain in FPL Challenge. I've gone all in with the double points from those teams. So that is pretty much all that needs to be said. If you want to see my predictions and how horribly wrong they are, this is how it looks like at the moment. So I said Man City 2, Wolves 1. So correct result, but the wrong scoreline. The same goes for Aston Villa Fulham. Yeah, Everton, surprising. 2-0 up, but they fumbled that lead. So 2-2 in the end. Leicester 2, Southampton 2. So I got that one wrong. Arsenal 1, Bournemouth 1. And Arsenal still couldn't even get that point. I've also gone for Brentford 3, Man United 1. We'll see how that goes tomorrow. The same goes for Brighton 2, Newcastle 2. West Ham 1, Tottenham 0. Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2. And Crystal Palace 1, Nottingham Forest 1. Let me now go back to my team and whiz through your questions and get through all your comments and stuff like that. And yeah, this will be quite a short stream, I think. But yeah, if people are still tuning in, I'm happy to do more reaction streams for the remaining gimmicks of the season. All the use your fantasy and FPL deadlines will be covered on this channel. And keep your eyes peeled for the best team for matchday 16 in UCL Fantasy, the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals, and also my team selection, where I've got 3 transfers, and my priority is to get rid of those Arsenal players. But we also have some injuries to contend with. Lautaro Martinez is a doubt. Some people actually said, oh, he's going to be ruled out, but there might be a twist to that tale. Ousmane Dembele sustained a hamstring injury against Arsenal. We'll see how serious that is. Probably not very serious, to be honest. You've also got Jules Koundé, who's out for the next 3 weeks, but all of that will be addressed in those UCL fantasy videos. Goldhead says benching Konsa over Saliba turned out to be a mistake. Gutted because Fulham actually got close, banking on Isak captain and Palace to get the points. Yeah, and like I said before, Bournemouth had 2 shots on target. But Raya was very, very poor today. One of his worst performances of the season. And in fact, if I actually remember correctly, in the 2-0 loss against Bournemouth earlier this season, Raya was also very poor. So I'm not sure. He needs to fix up against the Cherries, that's for sure. But yeah, on another day, it's the other way around. You get that clean sheet from Arsenal and Fulham score a goal or 2. Mukherjee says Sarr or Mateta, whose priority sell? Probably Sarr. Best replacement? Well, it'd be Bone for me. But if you still want to sell Mateta instead, I understand that. I think this is my favourite there. FPL Cortex says, evening Dylan, 8 points so far, 10 left to play. Yeah, so technically that'd be 9 players, including your captain. So I'd be fairly confident in your opinion. Yeah, Van Olsen on the bench hurts. Yeah, and there was a moment where you thought the goal could be disallowed, but in the end, you could say, I mean, it's close proximity. He couldn't really react in time. Who knows? I really don't care anyway. Crazy how it went from C having one of their worst seasons in recent history, looking like they weren't even going to get UCL. I mean, yeah, but overtaking Arsenal isn't really impressive, Adil. I get what you're saying. A few weeks ago or back in February, it looked like that was never going to happen, especially after Arsenal beat them 5-1. But yeah, the FA Cup, of course, and qualifying for Champions League, it's not a good season for their standards, but of course, I take that right now, but unfortunately, I'm not in a position to do that. 1Z Celsius says, I'm just hoping Nico Williams doesn't play or scores a goal too. Yeah, I don't think Nico Williams will score. Famous last words. But yeah, if he does start a clean sheet, isn't completely out of the cards. I've gone for 1-1 in that game, though. Chavain says, glad I started Martinez over Raya in the end. A bit disappointed with the Watkins blank. Yeah, he had scored in 3 consecutive games against Fulham prior to today. He missed a big chance as well, but at least you got that clean sheet. Braddon says, import 1. Import, interesting. Visser, Wood, Cunha or Bowen? Visser. Which defender to buy? It's still Milenkovic for me facing Leicester. I think Forest can keep a clean sheet, and that's why I'm looking at buying sells for my own team. Can't buy Milenkovic. Well, in that case, if you want to go a little bit different, then I'd recommend Nuri. But in terms of clean sheet, I think Forest have a better chance. Omar says, if I was an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't lose hope. You can score from 2 corners. Like I said, football's a funny game, but relying a lot on set pieces and stuff like that, free kicks and corners, it kind of gets tiring at some point. And Arsenal are very predictable from open play. So, yeah, we all know what the situation is, and that's why I've been very vocal about the transfer windows. Yeah, and that's where it really kind of stems from. Only Rice and Marino can do the business. Depends. I think Trossard has moments, but that's what he is, a moments player. I think he's better off the bench than starting games. Saka can do something. We saw him do very well in both ties against Madrid, but yeah, I still think he's a little bit off his normal level with the match sharpness, and that's kind of to be expected. But yeah, it's just been a terrible season, I think, from the beginning, and I can't wait until it's over. Now, if Arsenal somehow do the unthinkable, then that will obviously change, and I'll look back at this season very differently. But if it goes the way I think it will, I will erase it from my memory. I definitely will. Mukherjee says, if early news says Marmoush to be benched, should I sell them or just bench? I'd probably sell Marmoush, actually, and then go to Visser, Cunha, one of those forwards we discussed. Adil says the new UCL format has been good in terms of the one-off league phase games it produced. However, having no teams drop down into Europa League makes that competition much worse. I completely agree, and I've said this before. I think it depends as well how your club has done in the competition. So, for example, Real Madrid and Man City, they'd be very disappointed with their Champions League campaign. They probably prefer the old format. Arsenal have done very well up until this point, at least until the first leg of the Champions League semi-finals. And I think a lot of the fans will be kind of like happy with the new format. But I think with the old one, you did have a lot of like throwaway Champions League phase games. So a lot of the group stages were a bit boring. But it goes both ways. I think there's also more football. That means more injuries, more money, more entertainment, you could say. But yeah, overall, I think the new UCL format has been decent. I'm still a little bit skeptical about it, but as you mentioned, the severe drop-off in the Europa League is very damning. I mean, in years gone by, you've had Atletico Madrid drop down and win the Europa League, and now you've got 15th place United versus 17th place Spurs or something like that. It's crazy, but there you go. Name a better 16, 17-year-old player of all time. Pele. I mean, Pele was already amazing at 17 years of age. I think Maradona as well. Maybe not to the same consistency and level as Yamal, but that doesn't mean Yamal will be a better player than those legends. Mbappe, let's also not forget, he was incredible at Monaco. So don't get me wrong, Yamal's a generational talent. There is the possibility he peaks too early, but I think he will continue because he does seem like a player that has great decision-making and he's an all-round attacker. If he can add more goals to his game, the sky's the limit. We all know that, but to answer your question, I think Pele is probably the standout. Mukherjee says, Livramento, Pau Torres, Kivior, who else should I play? Kivior, no, just, mate, for any Arsenal player, even Saka, I would not start them against Liverpool. I've been very consistent about that over the last week. Not a big fan of any of them, but probably Livramento right now. Any chance of a clean sheet? A small one for Livramento or Pau Torres, but yeah, I'd favour Livramento right now. Sam, Arteta, Rodgers, bench one. Jesus, your whole team is basically going to be figured out already after this reaction stream. I'd probably bench Ismail Assar at the moment. Haaland would be such a waste at Bayern. That boy is Premier League, La Liga quality. I mean, you know what? I'm not even going to say it. I mean, I'm kind of disillusioned with all those leagues at the moment. But I think Haaland will go to Real Madrid one day. Yusuf says if Haaland starts against Southampton, he's going to mega haul. Yeah, which he didn't do, by the way, in the reverse fixture, but that's a different story entirely. I do agree with you. If he starts, he could get 2 or 3 goals. City match in 36 and the cup final is 7 days difference. I think Pep will go for the top 5 spot. Yeah, but they do have a bit of squad depth in certain positions, especially in the attack. So could Savio start against Southampton and then be benched in the FA Cup final? That's possible. That's what I'm kind of referring to. Yes, FPL Cayman, I am active. You can see the link in the description. I unfortunately tweeted a few times about the amazing club that is Arsenal today. Dog shit week, this one says Sing. Yeah, I agree. Double Arsenal defense and Marmoush or blank. Yeah. I mean, I benched Saliba, but I still wanted the Arsenal clean sheet and the win, even though it means nothing. I couldn't even get that. Start Wanyeri over Odegaard. Well, I'll be honest, I think Wanyeri's look better as a right winger. But yeah, what I wanted to see, even after Odegaard's first up performance, is for him to come off for Wanyeri and see something different. But apart from the Ipswich Town game, I think Arsenal have really been so predictable. They haven't really experimented or found new solutions in these Premier League matches. So if you're going to drop that many points and get 1 win from 5, at least find something different to then have a plan B in the Champions League. And I haven't seen that recently. But should he start? Probably, yeah. But against PSG on Wednesday, there's no chance Odegaard won't start. I bench Saka and Kivior. Result? Bit surprising to bench Saka. I mean, are you going to keep him against Liverpool or Newcastle? Time to bring in Milenkovic. He was quite poor the other day, to be fair, but yeah, against Leicester at home, I think a clean sheet is likely on paper. Not a guarantee, though, as we saw with Everton against Ipswich Town today. Which team players to target? Yeah, so I did cover the FDR earlier, so make sure to rewind and you can see some good names on there. I still like Everton for Game Week 37, but not so much for the other Game Weeks. But I think the teams to target would be Brentford, Wolves, I think Aston Villa. It's not just a question of the FDR, but also teams that have something to play for. I think Nottingham Forest would be up there as well. So yeah, those are some of the teams I'd look at. I think Bournemouth also deserve a mention. Gautam says, I'll look to target Wolves, Villa, Bournemouth players for 37 and 38. Wolves and Bournemouth are playing FA Cup finalists in 37. Villa play the Europa League finalists in 37 and 38. That's a good point, and that also expands on what I was talking about just now. Every season seems to be going quicker and quicker. I still remember when I was doing the Game Week 1 deadline for this season before the United-Fulham game when Xerxes won the game for United. Yeah, that does seem like a long time ago when you put it like that, but yeah, the season has gone quickly, thank God. Yeah, I think every year in general, not just in FPL, but I think every year does seem to be going quicker. Tiger says, I'm gutted my Gavardio benching didn't pay off. Can't believe Wolves didn't score. Yeah, they had 2 big chances. Man City only had 1. They hit the woodwork through Mateus Cunha, but yeah, Wolves just can't beat Man City, it seems. Play Raya or Areola? Areola. I'd play anyone over David Raya right now. Diaz to KDB for free next week? Yes, but just be careful about KDB's minutes. And not just him, I think any Man City player, there is the possibility of rotation. Import is crazy. Yeah, but then again, you know, some people are speaking their second language, so I'm not going to take the piss. FPL Cortex says, start one between Munoz, Kirkes, Aït-Nouri for next week. Already starting Williams and Gavardio. That is a good question. I'm tempted to say Aït-Nouri. And Moss says started Martinez instead of Raya and bench Cons for Saliba. Yeah, swings and roundabout, but the good thing about it is Martinez got 2 bonus points and Cons got 1, so you've actually gained a little bit if you want to look at the positive side. Graham says, good news and bad news. Got Vardy, but kept double Arsenal defence. Well, don't worry. You can sell those Arsenal defenders or Raya and goal. I would not recommend them for the next 2 game weeks. Did you see Bayern bottling the lead, at least for another week? Well, yeah, they lost to Leipzig. Sesko scored a decent goal. Travella shot, but yeah, they're still going to win the league. So Nika says, what a game week, man. This game never stops surprising me. Yeah, I'm kind of like numb to it at this point. As long as I get a green arrow, finish top 100k, I couldn't care less. JT says, Howson on the bench. Ugh. Timber and Raya combo not so bueno. Yeah, but Timber's coming off. So I'm not sure who's coming on for you. But Timber didn't play a single minute. Wood for Mateta. Based on fixtures, that looks promising. But Chris Wood's lack of form is slightly concerning. What happened to Kusanov? Regularly got minutes and now doesn't even get into the squad. I saw a rumour, and I don't like spreading rumours, believe it or not, that he got into a confrontation with Pep Guardiola. I'm not sure if that's got anything to do with it, but it does seem very strange. Maybe that is the reason. I'm not going to really delve into that too much. Yeah, I think KDB is definitely a outstanding shout. He was in my top 3 this week, actually, for the captaincy list. So, yeah, if he does start, I'd be tempted to buy him and captain him. Watkins captain cooked me. Somehow I'm still on a green arrow. Yeah, I'm surprised by that, but Watkins can be hit or miss with the finishing. Any defender other than Milenkovic. Well, Einer's back. You can go for him. Any Forest defender will do. It could be Murillo or Nico Williams, but you did ask for differentials and stuff. You're not going to gain too much, in my opinion, from going for Aina or Nico Williams instead of Milenkovic. So if you want to go different to your mini-league rival, then go for Aït-Nouri or cover a different team entirely. Bench one of Watkins, Bowen, Sarr. Sarr. Will A and B continue, do you think? My current prediction is no, and I hope it isn't. Does Forest get Champions League now? No, they have to be in the top 5. I think they're currently 6th in the Premier League table. Yeah, so they'd be in the Europa League. They do have good fixtures, though, and Chelsea have some pretty poor games, so it's still possible for them. Jason Phillips says, I plan to play the bench boost in 36. Sells, Henderson, Kirkes, Livramento, Aït-Nouri, Gavardio, Milenkovic, Salah, Palmer, Bowen and Boomer, Murphy, Cunha, Isak and Visser. 2 transfers in hand. Who to bring in? It's a good squad, to be fair. I would be looking at KDB, especially if you're backing him to start. And you could replace Cole Palmer with KDB. Another one you could look at. Interesting. Maybe a defender change. So I'm looking at Livramento out. And you could maybe triple up on that Forest defence. That isn't like going very differential, but that is a possible idea for you. But yeah, Palmer to KDB is definitely on the cards, Jason. And closer to the deadline, so basically the next deadline stream in FPL, we can talk about this again. But I think that it looks very promising for your team. Start Saliba or Konsa next week? I'd be tempted to start Southampton defenders over Arsenal next week against Liverpool. So, yeah, the answer's Konsa here. Shub with the emoji there. Hopefully I haven't offended anyone. Amal says, asking for next week, is taking out Marmoush for Wood for a hit viable? I'm not sure about that because even off the bench, Marmoush can do something against Southampton, and I'd probably wait for more information. We might get a leak. It's very unlikely, but yeah, for a hit, my answer would be no. I have Raya. I don't want to have double Arsenal defence. Should I sell him to Pickford, Sells, Edison, or who? I'd go to Sells. And I'm also looking at something similar, Terry. That's a good idea. I already have Milenkovic, Saliba, and Gvardiol. Sarr or Rodgers, who should I start? My current feeling is to start Rodgers, but he let me down this week. Adil says, Dylan, can you tell me what keeps you going in terms of motivation and discipline, just generally in life? And are there any specific habits you carry out in your day-to-day life that helps with this? It's a great question. I'm not sure I'm the person to ask, but the answer is definitely not Arsenal. And on that note, end the stream. I actually want to give a good answer to that, but I have to think about it. What keeps you going? Well, I try to do things I enjoy, so making videos and live streams, I think it does help. I think with any job or any kind of like walk of life, I think if you do something you enjoy, it gives you more motivation and you keep on doing it, even if the results aren't great. You keep on pushing and you're consistent. And I'm always looking at ways to improve. So yeah, if I could say anything somewhat insightful or interesting, it's probably finding ways to improve all the time. I'm quite harsh on myself, and also just doing stuff that I actually enjoy doing. But that is something that I think a lot of people would say in general. Easy says, I don't know why Arteta doesn't want to start the youth strike in the academy to start in the senior team. Yeah, I think you're on about Dalman, right? There is a rule or something. I'm not sure exactly what, but I'm not sure he's actually allowed to play. But Wenger should have got more minutes today, and in recent Premier League matches. Look, you're not going to find me defending Arteta a lot in terms of recent decisions. I'm not going to, do a complete 180 because I understood why he went strong today. But because it went tits up and Arsenal lost, it now puts more pressure on the team, as I mentioned before. And yeah, a lack of confidence in that squad is probably going to be a big factor. They need to get that out of their system for the Champions League. Yeah, Tielemans isn't a bad Rodgers alternative. Yeah, he's been in good form recently with the goals. And in the Champions League, he was actually very impressive in UCL Fantasy. Sean Horgan says 31 points so far. Could have been so much better. Changed to Marmoush captain last minute instead of KDB. Good score. But yeah, it does seem like a missed opportunity with the captaincy. I get that. But yeah, still a decent start to the game week for you. And hopefully you secure the green arrow. Wood or Cunha for Mateta? Cunha. I think Chris Wood has the better fixtures. But when I also combine form, yeah, Mateus Cunha I think has the highest ceiling right now. Which Forest defender is the most viable? My favourite is Milenkovic, but yeah, you've got other options as well. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Ingham, whether it's Arsenal or something else, but yeah, let me know when we can talk about that. Captain Wood next week. Fixture-wise, it's a great opportunity, but the lack of form is slightly concerning. My prediction is that he scores and gets bonus points, so that would be a solid captaincy return, but I can't help but feel that one of those City attackers could outscore him, and you've also got maybe Mateus Cunha, Imbumo, Vissa, so I don't think Chris Wood would be in my top 3 for the captaincy, but you will see my list next week. Yeah, Rodgers' stats were quite poor today. He did score against Fulham in the reverse fixture, and I actually had him for that game, but very disappointing today. Patrick says, hi Dylan, I did Saka to De Bruyne this week and happy with that. What do you think of Mateta to Wood or Rodgers to Elanga in Gameweek 36? Yeah, so I've been asked a lot about Mateta recently, about selling him, and whilst he was a sell in a recent Transfer Tips video, I actually did update that in a recent podcast, talking about holding him. Now, I do prefer Chris Wood on paper for the remaining game weeks. The same goes for Cunha, Vissa, Evanosum. But especially for a hit, I'd be very careful about selling Mateta. And in fact, I'd advise against it at the moment. But from those transfers you're saying, I prefer Chris Wood in for Mateta over selling Rodgers to Elanga. I also think Elanga's injury against Aston Villa a few weeks ago has halted his momentum. But yeah, Saka to De Bruyne was a very good transfer. Adil says, thanks, I agree with doing what you enjoy. Also ensuring you're improving and progressing at the same time is an important factor as well. Yeah, like even with videos and live streams, for example, I just try to, think, okay, what am I not doing or what can I bring to the table that's different? So that's why a few months ago I started introducing new graphics for both UCL Fantasy and FPL, but you can apply that to all walks of life, not just videos, and that's just a small, microcosm, of what you can do with that mentality. But yeah, I think everyone's different and everyone is motivated in different ways. But for me, it's kind of being self-critical and always trying to find ways to improve. Jason Phillips says, you think United could win the Europa League? Yes. I said at the beginning of the season, I'm not trying to, act like I'm an oracle or something, but when I was asked about who could win the Europa League, I said United and Spurs, and unfortunately, it's going to be the final, so I'm going to have to back United for once, basically. Yeah, I think United have the better mentality. They've also got experience of winning cups recently, and Spurs, we know them, Tin Pot Club, bad mentality and all that, but you are right to point out that fact about Spurs having United's number this season and always beating them, basically. So that is a very good point. But I think in a one-off game, in a Europa League final, and the same goes for any kind of cup final, especially the Champions League and Europa League, I think the bigger club does have an advantage, especially if they've actually won trophies recently. Do you think Marmoush will be benched next game week? It's possible. If you're asking me now, I think yes. I think Marmoush could be benched. Adil says, have a good evening and weekend. Take care. Likewise to you. Enjoy the football. Thoughts on a League of Fantasy format? I haven't played any other fantasy games apart from UCL Fantasy, Euros, World Cup, F1 and FPL. I used to play Sky Sports Fantasy when that was a thing. It did close down this season, but you haven't played Serie A or La Liga Fantasy and all that. I'm not sure how it works. Is the City system not favouring Marmoush? Seems quite far away from goal and stats aren't encouraging either. Well, he played essentially as a right winger against Wolves and KDB was the false nine, so that hasn't actually done well or resulted in returns for Marmoush or at least shown consistency and sustainable numbers and performances. So you are right to point that out. I think this new system of KDB as the false nine hasn't helped Marmoush one bit. And I think if I were to build a wildcard video and team, I'm not sure Marmoush is in there now. Marmoush or Isak to Wood. As things stand, I'd rather sell Marmoush. I think Haaland being on the bench is also a massive factor. Now, could Marmoush stay as a right winger and then KDB drops to the attacking midfield role and Haaland up front? Yes. But I also think Marmoush will rotate in the remaining game weeks. Keep Isak for game week 36 or use one transfer for Wissa? That is a very good question, and as much as I like Wissa, I think I'd stick with Isak. But that is my current thinking, and I think Wissa would rank higher as a captaincy option in 36. Hi Dylan, is it worth to start an Arsenal defender in game week 36? No. Zilch, no, just stay away from that. And I said zilch, it means just nothing, but yeah, my advice is to bench all Arsenal players or sell them in 36. Ange says he wins trophies in his second season. He maybe wins it, even though he will likely be sacked. Yeah, but ultimately, I think Spurs fans would remember Ange and also the Europa League campaign more if they win it compared to when they finished second in the Premier League all those years ago. But yeah, that is just the way football is. I mean, ultimately, you can be better than another team for most of the season, and they could be close to a relegation battle, but winning a trophy does change everything. So I'm not going to really change my mind about that. When Spurs were in their prime, so to speak, Arsenal were winning FA Cups, and I always kind of told Spurs fans that. So it could be the other way around now, and that's football, unfortunately. James Carr says currently 130k up from 300k in the last two game weeks, bench boost in phase 6. That is a great rank rise, so fair play on that. Yes, Singh, I think so. And I don't like saying that. I mean, it is mad, right? But I also think with Arsenal, a lot has to do with expectation. Now, my argument would have been, and I know a lot of people would disagree, and that's fair enough, football is a game of opinions, that Arsenal win the Community Shield. I know it's not important, but winning that and also having a Premier League campaign that was worthy of a title, pushing City all the way to game week 38 and narrowly missing out, I think that was a better season than United and all these others that won cups and stuff like that. But here it's different because Arsenal, if they don't win the Champions League, and let's not forget they're still in it, but if they don't and they finish, I don't even know, second, third, fourth, doesn't really matter at this point. But the way the season's gone, yeah, I think Spurs would have a better season. Now, do I rate the Europa League? No, especially this season. I think the quality is just absolutely lackluster. And Europa League is ultimately a second-rate European trophy. But I'd rather win that than nothing. I'm not going to lie to you. Don't you think Haaland will be eased in and get some minutes before starting a game? That's possible as well. I mean, he didn't play a single minute in game week 35. But with the FA Cup final looming, I could see Marmoush or maybe De Bruyne. It really depends how Pep really tinkers with the team now with Haaland coming back. But I think Haaland could start the game, get 60, 70 minutes in Game Week 36, and then be on the bench for the FA Cup final. So that's my prediction at the moment. But Marmoush could still start and coexist with Haaland, although it's less likely. Is it too crazy to bench Salah for Rodgers next game week? I will not be benching Salah against Arsenal. He will score. Hey Dylan, which do you prefer for next week? Isak to Vissa, Isak to Cunha, or Diaz to KDB? Diaz to KDB. But there is a slight chance of rotation there or reduced minutes. King Jr. says, out of my three forwards, which one should I sell to buy either Wood, Watkins, Vissa? This could definitely change, but at the moment, I would consider selling Marmoush. Now, if he does start and we get that confirmation before the deadline, I'd definitely keep him. You know, things do change very quickly. Hi, would you transfer Palmer to a cheap mid and Marmoush to Haaland? At the moment, no. I'd be more tempted to do Palmer to KDB at the moment, but that is a good idea, and that could be a differential that really propels you up the ranks. So I think that's probably worth talking about in a few days' time, where we have more information or a better idea of Man City's starting lineup. But I'll be honest, I think that is very difficult to predict right now. I think they will go strong because, as Easy said, the FA Cup final takes place a week after, but I think there are some concerns in that starting 11. I think Pep will go with Marmoush, Grealish, Bernardo, Savio as the front four, KDB as the DM with Kovacic. That is a possibility, but that would be a drastic change in terms of having KDB as a false nine to then playing in a deeper role. Now, he is capable of doing it. He's a great player, but I don't think KDB will play that deep. Tom Mills says, really annoyed. I was on wildcard this week and went for the Everton double up in the defence, Pickford and Mikalenko, and already regretting it. They are not the same defensive unit without Tarkowski. That is true, and also under David Moyes. He has done well to keep them up, but at the same time, defensively, they have been much worse than they were under Sean Dyche. Now, I think a clean sheet against Southampton in 37 is still possible, but I'll be honest, I'm not that confident now after seeing what they did today. I have 21 points so far. The remaining players are Salah, Sarr, Mbeumo, Isak, and my captain Vissa. I think most of them will return. Not all, but that looks fairly solid. 21 points is okay at this point of the game week, so yeah, a small green arrow is, I think, viable. Thoughts on Gibbs White for 36? I think the fixture is great, and I think any Forest player looks very enticing, but yeah, Gibbs White is difficult to predict in terms of when he'll return, but when he does get a goal or assist, he has a great chance of getting bonus points. But my favourite Forest players remain Milenkovic, Sells, and Chris Wood. Wouldn't it be mad if both Spurs and Arsenal win their European competitions? I take that all day long, definitely, but yeah, it would be madness. That is the answer to your question. King Jr. says, I have Kirkus on my bench and the fixtures for Bournemouth aren't great. Should I keep or sell? I'd keep him. And he was in my wildcard video yesterday or 2 days ago, because in Game Week 38, it's Leicester at home. So if you've got the squad depth, bench Kirkus in the next two if you wish, and then start him against Leicester. Would you captain Marmoush despite the change in City setup? I'd be less keen on that. My current captain is Mbeumo for Game Week 36, but I'll talk about that very soon. The Legend of Renegade says, would you take a hit to get rid of Estupinian and Verbruggen for a bench boost and sick of Brighton defence now? Yes, would be the answer. Who's your top three drop-off performance player in the second half of the season? Palmer would be up there. He's the kind of standout because he had a decent first half of the campaign, and obviously last season he was great, and he hasn't scored in 17 games, so I think it's worth mentioning him, also based on the standards and the quality of player. You could easily put an Arsenal player in there, I guess. I mean, Odegaard would be a contender, but then again, I think he's been poor the whole season and the injury hasn't helped, but he still should be doing better by now. I have to think about that. It is a good question. Heung-min Son has been poor all season. Could he be another one? Perhaps he could. Yeah, Brandon, I did cover that earlier. I'll show it one more time. So these are my predictions, and you can see the other ones I had. Whoa, voice crack. Jesus, I'm not crying, I promise. Even though Arsenal do make you cry a lot. I've learnt to not do that. So I've gone for Brentford 3, Man United 1, Brighton 2, Newcastle 2, West Ham 1, Tottenham 0, Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2, and Crystal Palace 1, Nottingham Forest 1. So let's go through the other questions and comments, and let's wrap up very shortly. Lau says, Captain Marmush in the last minute. Wish we could change captain like in UCL Fantasy. Yeah, there are times where I wish certain aspects of that game were introduced into this one, but yeah, very unlikely we'll see that. Also, good to see you, Arstravidan. There are rumours Nico Williams representatives met Arsenal. Oh, Nico Williams. I thought you were talking about, the Nottingham Forest fullback for a second. Yeah, I'm not sure where you got that from, but I'll be honest, I'm going to completely ignore any transfer rumours until they sign, and until I see a great transfer window, I'm not going to be invested. And that's the best thing to do, I think, and a great advice for all Arsenal fans watching. Singh says, with how this week has been, what are your expectations from Bowen and Mbeumo? Yeah, I get what you're saying. One of them could really disappoint and continue this kind of trajectory and pattern from this game week. I think one of them will return, though. Well, both of them, I'm kind of mixed on that, but they are facing poor teams. Yeah, my prediction is for one of them to do well and the other one to kind of disappoint people. I'm hoping Mbeumo is the one who does really well. James Carr says, stick with Diaz or Cliver, already have KDB. I think Diaz is more prone to rotation. I know Cliver was subbed off early today, which was surprising. I'd rather stick with Cliver at the moment, but the next two fixtures don't look great. It's mainly Gameweek 38 against Leicester at home, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bournemouth didn't win the next two games and then beat Leicester. So it makes this loss from Arsenal even worse on paper, because Bournemouth had 2 wins out of 10 games before today. Well done. Well done, Arteta and the Arsenal lads. Let's go back to my team and wrap up very soon, like I said, but there are still more questions coming in. Tom says, I still have the bench boost to play. Thoughts on what is the better Gameweek to use it? I'd lean towards 36, like I mentioned before. In Gameweek 37, more chance of rotation for the FA Cup finalists, Crystal Palace and Man City. And you also have teams like Arsenal and Newcastle playing against each other. If you have a lot of players from those clubs, you'd rather bench boost in another game week, but it is team dependent. Yeah, I'm not sure Napstars. I don't think Dembele will be out, but that's also probably kind of fearing the worst from an Arsenal perspective. I just don't expect players to miss out that way. So I think Dembele will be available. Even if Dembele was available or not, my concern is about Arsenal going there and scoring goals, creating chances, and having a complete team performance. Can they do it? Yes, but I think just the last couple of weeks and also the lack of consistency and momentum, obviously losing the first game and looking toothless, that hasn't really helped things. JIT, or JIT, says bought in KDB 3 minutes before the deadline and gave him the armband. Fair play. Sheffield United, Sunderland, Bristol City and Coventry, who will be promoted? Difficult to say. I'm not even sure who plays who in the playoffs, but I guess Sheffield United. We have seen in recent years that third place doesn't typically get it, if I'm not mistaken. Would you keep Bradley with the rotation comment from Slot? Probably not. I'd just go for someone else more nailed on, because it is also potentially Trent's final games at Liverpool, so I'd still expect him to get game time. I mean, I get your point. It's a good question, but I'd rather just go for more nailed on defenders if possible. Elanga or Gibbs White for Gameweek 36? I'd lean towards Elanga, but it's very close. Still having triple captain and bench boost. Probably bench boost 36 and triple captain in 38 would be my advice, but you might also feel, I want to captain KDB this week and also put the triple captaincy on him, so I don't really blame you if you go a bit different. And I'll be honest, I don't know your team, so it makes it very difficult to answer, definitively. Sheffield versus Bristol, Sunderland versus Coventry. Interesting. Yeah, I think Sheffield United reached a final, but haven't seen much of those teams this season, if I'm being completely honest. So I'd do a lot of research on the promoted teams during the summer, and I'll talk about them in my videos around June, July, and going into August. But yeah, my current prediction is Sheffield United. We'll see how that goes. Ultimately, does it even matter? Will these teams just go back down next season? Hopefully not, but yeah, it hasn't been good for championship teams in recent Premier League seasons. Thank you, Singh. Great stream, Dylan. Have a great evening. Likewise to you. And thank you to those that have tuned in today. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. We are very close to getting to a new goal, 33k subscribers. So yeah, like an idiot, I already clicked the wrong button. Well done. Yeah, by Tuesday's deadline stream, I will be hitting that goal. That is pretty much almost secured. So I do appreciate those that have tuned in and supported the channel. So let's actually see where we're at now. Shouldn't be too far off. Yeah, we're literally 18 away from 33k subscribers. So thank you to those that have shown support. Sebwa says, definitely tempted by the Haaland captaincy versus Southampton, but also like Cunha at home to Brighton. There's also Mbuma and Vissa against Ipswich Town. You've also got KDB. There's a lot of decent options, actually. Which weeks are interesting for the bench boost? 36 is my favourite on paper, but it will vary for people depending on their team structure. Dave says, great stream as always, mate. Thank you very much. Cheers, all the best for the rest of the game week. Thank you very much. And also to Beardy, but still not quite there yet. We're 18 away from 33k, but by Tuesday, we will reach that goal. Femi says, I have Raya, Kivior, and Kanate. Should I bench them all and start Areola, Munoz, Gavadio, and is that Konsa? I wouldn't mind starting Kanate this week, but Raya and Kivior, keep them as far away as possible from your 11. That's my main advice. Now, if Arsenal make me look like a tit and, you know, they do something surprising at Anfield, fair enough, but it means nothing. Yeah, my current prediction is just to, and advice is just to get rid of all those Arsenal players and bench them. I've said that also before today's game. I think that's the best thing you can do. I'm definitely benching Ryan Saliba, and I'll talk about that in my team selection as well. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you've got any other questions, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Dylan RCM, the Discord server, FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in description, so we can continue the conversation there for FPL and UCL Fantasy. Speaking of which, the best team for Matchday 16 will be up in the next couple of days, combining the wildcard and the limitless for the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals, and my team selection with free transfers available. We'll also discuss my current plans for Matchday 16 with multiple injuries to talk about after Matchday 15, of course. We had a lot of problems happen there as well. But I'll see you very soon. Hopefully Sunday and Monday is much better and we can end Gameweek 35 very strongly. And there will be more FPL videos and live streams over the course of this season. Only a few weeks left, of course, until the very end. The last stream and piece of content will be on the 31st of May for the Champions League final, where I'll be going live as usual. The same goes for this Tuesday for the Champions League semi-final, of course. Thank you, Frankie, and good luck to you as well. And take care. Enjoy the football. Let's have a great end to this Premier League season and also rise up those mini leagues and rankings. So until then, keep your eyes peeled for the UCL Fantasy videos. I will be there very soon, and hopefully you'll be on board as we reach 33 subscribers.